Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a platform that literally redefines the word scale. We're talking about Sino Weibo. Now, it gets called China's Twitter a lot, but honestly, that label barely scratches the surface. Weibo is this incredibly fascinating ecosystem where celebrity gossip, massive e-commerce deals, and totally viral public expression all just collide head-on with some of the strictest regulatory oversight on the planet. It's a wild dynamic, and we're going to break it all down.
So, here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, China's digital public square. Second, the evolution of a giant. Third, inside the platform. Fourth, the Weibo economy. And finally, expression under the microscope.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, China's digital public square.
To really wrap our heads around Weibo's massive influence, you have to look at the raw data from Q2 2025. 588 million. That is how many monthly active users they have right now. And around 260 million of them are logging on every single day, which drives well over 100 billion daily interactions. Just think about that for a second. 100 billion likes, reposts, and comments happening every 24 hours. It's absolutely staggering.
And to put those crazy numbers into perspective, right now, 76.5% of China's entire population maintains a social media identity. Imagine if over 3/4 of your country was plugged into the exact same network. That means Weibo isn't just a popular app anymore. It is practically a digital nation all on its own, and the absolute heartbeat for breaking news and national conversation.
Moving right along to Section 2, evolution of a giant. So how exactly did they get here?
Well, Weibo launched back in 2009, perfectly timed to fill the gap when global platforms like Twitter were blocked in China. The growth was explosive. They hit 300 million users by 2011, which, not coincidentally, was right around the time a state mandate required real name verification to basically wipe out anonymity online. Then came a massive $3.3 billion IPO in 2014. But a really crucial turning point hit in 2018. That's when the algorithms were deliberately tweaked to prioritize what the state calls positive energy. And that brings us to today, a mature digital monolith carefully balancing its 588 million users against incredibly intense regulatory waters.
Naturally, all that growth forced an incredible transformation. Back in 2009, Weibo was essentially just a basic microblog. You were restricted to 140-character text posts. But today, to fend off fierce video competitors like Douyin, Weibo has completely morphed into this massive multimedia universe. We are talking 10-minute video uploads, hour-long live streams absolutely packed with digital GIFs, and millions of users diving into highly active niche communities.
Okay, let's peel back the layers in Section 3, inside the platform.
Now, if you're picturing a platform dominated by one highly specific demographic, actually scratch that. It is remarkably balanced. We're looking at a near-even gender split with 49% male and 51% female users. It doesn't just cater to tech bros or beauty influencers, it truly reflects the whole spectrum of the Chinese public square. But while the gender split is practically perfectly even, the age breakdown is a totally different story. It is fiercely concentrated. A whopping 70% of Weibo users are college-aged youth, right in that 18 to 24 sweet spot. They are the undeniable heartbeat of the platform. And they're not just scrolling aimlessly either. 78% of them are logging on primarily for breaking news, and 60% are actively looking for real-time social connection. So how does a giant platform keep that easily distracted, youthful demographic so hooked? Well, their secret weapon is something called super topics. Introduced back in 2016, these are highly dedicated, super-focused community hubs for niche discussions. We're talking everything from K-pop idol fandoms to the absolute newest tech drops. With over 100 million active users siloed into these super topics, Weibo manages to take a massive digital nation and make it feel like a series of tight-knit little neighborhoods.
That brings us to Section 4, the Weibo economy.
You know, having 500 million young, super engaged users is basically a marketer's absolute dream. And for Weibo, it translates to some serious cash. We're looking at a staggering $1.76 billion in trailing 12-month revenue as of mid-2025, with their Q2 net revenues actively growing year over year.
So where exactly does $1.5 billion come from? Well, an overwhelming 80% is straight-up advertising, and one of their absolute cash cows is promoted trends. Brands will happily drop upwards of 100,000 RMB, which is a massive premium, just to dominate the top of the trending list for a single day. Another 15% rolls in from slick e-commerce integrations, with premium user subscriptions rounding out the final 5%.
To keep those revenues climbing throughout 2025, Weibo is heavily focused on squeezing value out of literally every interaction. They are leaning hard into high ROI influencer marketing campaigns and totally seamless social commerce. A user can buy products via Taobao and Weibo shop links without ever having to leave the post they are looking at. In fact, influencers drive half of all those sales. Brands are even paying to boost those dedicated super topics we just talked about, directly targeting the platform's most passionate fans.
Which leads us directly into our final part, Section 5, Expression Under the Microscope.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand that all of this viral marketing and massive public discourse operates under intense real-time scrutiny. Just looking at September 2025 alone, China's cyberspace regulator penalized Weibo for inadequate management of viral celebrity gossip. That very same month, entertainers found themselves under investigation for sharing propaganda denying Taiwan's sovereignty. And these are not just isolated one-off events. They are part of a much broader 2025 state initiative to aggressively crack down on online hostility and pessimism. When you run a digital public square this large, the guardrails are incredibly strict.
And you know, this didn't just happen overnight. This level of oversight has been a very steady, systematic escalation. Back in 2011, real name verification stripped away the shield of anonymity. By 2018, the algorithm itself was tweaked to actively filter for that positive energy. Fast forward to 2023, and the strategy expanded into massive fiscal oversight, highlighted by a staggering $1.3 billion tax fine against a top influencer. Now in 2025, Weibo is dealing with heightened transparency reports and strict active limits on minor accounts. The boundaries are constantly tightening.
Ultimately, it leaves the platform caught in an enduring paradox. Weibo is unquestionably the main driver of public discourse in China, yet it also remains a volatile vector for division, constantly struggling to contain misinformation, even dealing with echoes of international events like the Capitol riots. As one recent analysis perfectly put it, 2025 strategies innovate, but equity demands vigilance. Weibo has to execute this impossible daily tightrope walk, keeping a highly profitable, youthful community engaged while simultaneously fully complying with absolute state directives. So as these digital ecosystems continue to swell up into what are essentially digital nations of their own, it leaves us with a pretty massive question. Can absolute viral expression ever truly coexist with absolute oversight? It's not just the defining question for Weibo, it's a question for the future of the digital public square everywhere. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and we will see you next time.